I watched Vincent pick up the pen. His hand didn't shake. He looked at me with that familiar smirk, the one that used to make me feel small. Today, it just made me wait. He was so eager to take everything. The big house, the business, the luxury cars. He thought he was leaving me with nothing but the clothes on my back. He was so confident that he didn't even read the final page. He just signed his name, slashing the ink across the paper like he was cutting me out of his life forever. That was when his lawyer leaned in. The room was silent, but the lawyer's whisper seemed to echo like a scream. He put his hand on Vincent's arm, looked at the document, and said just 5 words. "You just assumed the debt." I saw the color drain from Vincent's face. The smirk vanished instantly. His eyes darted down to the papers, then back up to me. For the first time in 10 years, he looked terrified. I didn't say a word. I just smoothed my skirt, looked him in the eye, and smiled. He thought he had taken everything from me, but the truth was, I had just given him exactly what he deserved. I wasn't always the woman sitting in that courtroom with a secret smile. Once, I was just a girl. I was 17 years old when I met Vincent. I was in my final year of high school, and he was 2 years older, already out in the world, trying to make a name for himself. He had a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He had big dreams, and he talked about them constantly. He didn't have any money, and he didn't have a plan, but he had charisma. And for a girl like me, who had always been quiet and shy, that charisma was like sunlight. We got married when I was 19. I remember my mother asking me if I was sure. She told me I was too young, that I should go to college first, that I should find out who I was before I became someone's wife. But I didn't listen. I was in love. I thought Vincent was going to build the world for me. I didn't realize back then that I was the one who would have to pick up the hammer and nails. The beginning of our marriage wasn't glamorous. We lived in a tiny apartment above a garage. The heating didn't work in the winter, and the windows rattled when the wind blew. But we were happy, or at least I thought we were. Vincent started his construction and contracting business 6 months after our wedding. He called it Vincent's Empire. He laughed when he said the name, but I knew he was serious. He wanted to be a king. The problem was Vincent was good at talking to people, but he was terrible at the actual work of running a business. He hated paperwork. He hated budgets. He hated scheduling. He just wanted to shake hands, sign contracts, and spend the money. By the time I was 23, I was his entire support system. I had to learn everything from scratch. I bought books on accounting. I taught myself how to use complex software to track expenses. I learned about tax laws, payroll, and insurance. I didn't go to college like my friends. My college was our kitchen table, covered in receipts and invoices at 2 a.m, while Vincent slept in the other room. I remember one specific night. It was snowing outside. I was 8 months pregnant with our son, Tyler. My back ached constantly, and my ankles were swollen. Vincent had come home angry because a supplier had overcharged us. He threw the invoice on the table and stormed off to watch TV. I picked up the paper. I spent 4 hours going through 3 years of records to find the discrepancy. I found it. I typed up a professional email to the supplier, attached the proof, and saved us $4,000. When I told Vincent the next morning, he just nodded. He was eating eggs I had cooked for him. He didn't say, "Thank you." He just said, "Good. Make sure they don't do it again." Then he kissed me on the cheek, grabbed his keys, and left. That was the pattern. I did the work, and he took the credit. When Tyler was born, things got even harder. I was a full-time mother and a full-time business manager, but nobody saw the second part. To the outside world, I was just a housewife. When we went to dinner parties or barbecues, people would slap Vincent on the back. "Business is booming, Vince," they would say. "You're a genius. How do you manage it all?" Vincent would puff out his chest. He would take a sip of his beer and say, "It's a grind, you know? But you got to have the vision. You got to be willing to put in the hours." He never mentioned me. He never said, "Actually, Alexis was up until 3 a.m. filing the quarterly taxes." He never said, "Alexis negotiated that contract." He just soaked up the praise like a sponge. I stood there, holding Tyler on my hip, smiling politely. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that we were a team. It didn't matter who scored the goal, as long as the team won. That's what I told myself to keep the resentment from growing. But it wasn't just the business. It was everything. I managed the house. I mowed the lawn because he was too tired on weekends. I fixed the leaky faucets. I planned his mother's birthday parties. I bought the gifts he gave to his friends. I was the invisible engine that kept his life running smoothly. And for a long time I stayed. I was practical. I was patient. I was loyal to a fault. I believed in the vows I had taken, for better or for worse. I thought we were building a future together. I thought that eventually he would see me. I thought that one day he would look at me and realize that everything he had was because of the woman standing in his shadow. The business grew. We moved out of the apartment and into a starter home, and then, 5 years ago, into the dream house. It was a massive property with a pool, a 3-car garage, and a marble kitchen. It was the house Vincent wanted to show off. "Look at this place, Alexis," he told me the day we moved in. "I did this. I built this for us." I looked at the house. I knew exactly how much the mortgage was. I knew we couldn't really afford it. I knew the down payment had come from an inheritance I received when my grandmother passed away. But I didn't say anything. I just smiled and said, "It's beautiful, Vincent." I was underestimated, not just by him, but by everyone. His friends saw a quiet wife. His family saw a doormat. Even my own friends sometimes looked at me with pity, wondering why I didn't have a career of my own. They didn't know I was the CFO, the COO, and the HR department of a $1 million company. They didn't know I was the only reason Vincent wasn't in jail for tax evasion. I kept the secrets. I protected his image. I raised our son to look up to his father. I told Tyler, "Daddy works so hard for us." I polished the armor of the man who would eventually try to destroy me. I look back at that young woman now, the 23-year-old with the baby on her hip and the calculator in her hand, and I want to hug her. I want to tell her to run. But she wouldn't have listened. She was made of loyalty and hope. She had to learn the hard way. She had to be broken before she could become strong. And the breaking was coming soon enough. The change didn't happen overnight. It was slow, like water wearing down a stone. It started with the criticism. For the first 10 years, Vincent had been indifferent to what I did, but he hadn't been cruel. But as the business grew, at least in appearance, his ego grew with it. And as his ego got bigger, his patience for me got smaller. It started with small comments. We would be getting ready to go out for dinner. I would put on a dress I liked, something simple and comfortable. Vincent would come into the bedroom, buttoning his expensive shirt, and look me up and down. He wouldn't smile. He would just frown slightly. "You're wearing that?" he would ask. "What's wrong with it?" I'd say, looking in the mirror. "Nothing." He'd sigh, loud and dramatic. "It's just bland. You look like a librarian. Can't you try a little harder?" I have a reputation to maintain, Alexis. People expect my wife to look a certain way. It stung. It made me feel ugly. I would change the dress, trying to find something he approved of, but nothing was ever quite right. My hair was too plain. My makeup was too light. My shoes were too sensible. Then the criticism moved to the house. I kept the house spotless. I cooked dinner every single night. But suddenly, nothing tasted right to him. "This chicken is dry," he would say, pushing his plate away after one bite. I cooked it the same way I always do. I would reply softly, "Well, maybe you should learn a new way. It's like eating cardboard." He would stand up, leaving his full plate on the table, and walk away. He wouldn't help clean up. He wouldn't look back. I would sit there with Tyler, who was 10 years old by then. Tyler would look at me with big, worried eyes. "I like the chicken, Mom," Tyler would whisper. Those moments broke my heart more than the insults. My son was trying to protect me from his father. A child shouldn't have to comfort his mother. Then came the distance. Vincent started coming home later and later. At first, it was late meetings. Then it was site visits. Then it was just vague excuses. "I have to go out," he would say on a Friday night. "Where?" I would ask. "Just out, Alexis." "Stop interrogating me. I work 18 hours a day to pay for this house. I deserve to blow off some steam." He would leave, smelling of cologne that was too strong. He would come back at 2 a.m., smelling of smoke and perfume that wasn't mine. I knew. Deep down, I knew. But I didn't want to start a fight I couldn't win. I was tired. I was so tired of fighting for my dignity in my own home. He started guarding his phone like it was the nuclear launch codes. He changed his passwords. He took calls in the garage. If I walked into the room while he was texting, he would flip the phone face down instantly. "Who are you talking to?" I asked once. "Nobody," he snapped. "Work. You wouldn't understand. It's complicated business stuff." "I manage the books, Vincent," I reminded him. "I understand the business better than you do." He laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "You write checks, Alexis. You don't understand business. You don't understand how the real world works. You just sit in this safe house and play secretary." That was the moment I realized he didn't just take me for granted. He actually despised me. He resented me because he needed me. He hated that I knew the truth about the finances. He wanted to feel like a big man, and my presence was a constant reminder that he wasn't. And then, the lies turned into open hostility. His mother, Lorraine, joined in. Lorraine had never really liked me. She thought I was boring. She wanted Vincent to marry someone flashy, someone who fit the image she had of her successful son. Lorraine came over for Sunday dinner one week. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. We were eating roast beef. "The meat is tough," Lorraine said, chewing loudly. She looked at Vincent. "Poor Vinny. You work so hard. You deserve a decent meal." Vincent nodded. "I know, Ma." I try to tell her. "I try my best," I said, my voice shaking a little. "Your best isn't very good, is it?" Lorraine said. She smiled, but her eyes were cold. "You know Brittany, the girl at the club? She's such a good cook. She made lasagna for the church potluck, and it was divine. And she's so pretty. Always dresses so nice. Brittany." It was the first time I heard her name spoken out loud in our house. My stomach dropped. I looked at Vincent. He didn't look ashamed. He looked smug. He looked like he was enjoying watching his mother tear me down. The breaking point came 3 months later. It was a Tuesday. A regular Tuesday. I was folding laundry in the living room. Vincent came home early, which was unusual. He didn't say hello. He walked into the kitchen, poured himself a drink, and walked back into the living room. He stood there, watching me fold his shirts. "I want a divorce," he said. He said it like he was ordering a sandwich. No emotion, no sadness, just a statement. I stopped folding. My hands were trembling, but I placed the shirt down neatly on the pile. I looked up at him. "Why?" I asked. "Because I'm unhappy," he said. "I've been unhappy for years. You drag me down, Alexis. You're depressing. You have no ambition. I've outgrown you. You've outgrown me?" I repeated. "Vincent, I built your company." "Stop saying that," he shouted, suddenly angry. "You did some paperwork." "I built the company." "Me. It's my name on the trucks." He took a step closer, towering over me. "And here is how it's going to work," he said. "I'm keeping the house. I'm keeping the business. I'm keeping the cars. You can have your personal stuff, clothes, books, whatever junk you want. But the assets are mine." "What about Tyler?" I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. Vincent shrugged. It was the most painful thing I have ever seen a parent do. He just shrugged. "Tyler stays here with me on weekends. You can have him during the week for school. He needs a father figure, someone successful. But I'm not going to be a babysitter. You take care of the daily stuff." He treated our son like a piece of luggage, like a leftover he was allowing me to keep because it was too much work for him. "And one more thing," he added, turning to walk away. "I want you out of the master bedroom tonight. You can sleep in the guest room until you find a place. Brittany is coming over to look at paint colors this weekend. I don't want her to feel uncomfortable." Brittany, she wasn't just a name anymore. She was coming into my house. She was going to paint my walls. I stood there in the living room, surrounded by piles of his clean laundry. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. The betrayal was absolute. He wasn't just leaving me. He was erasing me. He wanted to strip me of everything, my home, my work, my pride, my dignity. But as I stood there, watching his back as he walked up the stairs, something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. A cold, hard calm settled over me. It was the freezing point of my heart. He thought I was weak. He thought I was stupid. He thought I was just a secretary who didn't understand business. He had forgotten one thing. I was the one who did the books. I was the one who knew where every single dollar was buried. And I knew things about Vincent's empire that he had forgotten, or maybe things he was too arrogant to worry about. He wanted a war? He was going to get one. But it wouldn't be a loud war with screaming and thrown vases. It would be a silent war. A paper war. I walked to the guest room. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, I started to plan for myself. Living in a house that is no longer yours is a special kind of torture. Vincent didn't kick me out immediately. He said I could stay in the guest room for a few weeks until I found a cheap apartment. He made it sound like charity, like he was being generous. But really, he just wanted me there to see his new life. He wanted an audience. The nightmare started 3 days after he asked for the divorce. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, making toast for Tyler. I heard a car pull into the driveway. A car door slammed. Then I heard giggling. The front door opened and Vincent walked in. He was holding the hand of a woman I had only seen in pictures on social media. Brittany. She was young, maybe 24. She had long, blonde extensions and fake eyelashes that touched her eyebrows. She was wearing a tight pink tracksuit that looked expensive. She looked around my hallway, the hallway I had painted, the hallway where I had hung pictures of Tyler's first steps, and she wrinkled her nose. "It's a bit dark, isn't it, Vinny?" she said. Her voice was high and nasal. "We can change it, babe," Vincent said. He squeezed her hand. "Whatever you want. It's your canvas now." He saw me standing in the kitchen doorway. He didn't let go of her hand. He didn't look embarrassed. He just nodded at me. "Alexis, this is Brittany," he said. "She's going to be spending some time here. Be nice. Be nice." He brought his mistress into the home where his wife and child lived, and he told me to be nice. Brittany looked at me. She didn't smile. She looked me up and down with a look of pure pity mixed with disgust. It was the look you give to an old piece of furniture that is about to be thrown in the dumpster. "Hi," she said. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned back to Vincent. "Show me the master bedroom. I need to see the closet space." They walked past me and went upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, listening to their footsteps above my head. I heard them laughing in the bedroom that I had slept in for 5 years. I heard the closet door open. "Oh my God," I heard Brittany screech. "Why are there still so many drab clothes in here? We need to clear this out, Vinny. I need room for my shoes." "Don't worry," Vincent's voice muffled through the floor. "She's moving her stuff to the guest room today. It'll all be gone by tonight." I felt like I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my toast, put it on a plate, and went to find Tyler. I took him to the park. I couldn't let him hear that. I couldn't let him see his father erasing his mother. That was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Brittany slowly took over my life. She didn't just visit. She moved in. Her boxes started piling up in the living room. She changed the radio station in the kitchen to pop music I hated. She threw out my specific brand of coffee and replaced it with vanilla-flavored pods. One afternoon, I came home from grocery shopping to find a pile of garbage bags on the front porch. I looked inside one. It was my throw pillows. The ones I had hand-stitched. I walked inside. Brittany was sitting on the couch, filing her nails. "I threw out those dusty pillows," she said without looking up. "They smelled like old lady. I ordered some velvet ones. They come on Tuesday." "Those were mine," I said. My voice was quiet. "Well, it's Vincent's house," she snapped. "And I'm the one living in the living room now, so I get to decide." Vincent walked in from the garage. He saw me standing there, shaking. "What's the problem now, Alexis?" he sighed. "She threw out my things," I said. "It's just pillows, Alexis," Vincent groaned. "Stop being so dramatic. You can take them out of the bag, if you want them that bad. But get them out of the living room." I went outside and pulled my pillows out of the garbage bag on the front lawn. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, was walking her dog. She stopped and watched me. She saw me digging through the trash while Brittany's bright pink car sat in the driveway. Mrs. Gable didn't wave. She just looked down and walked away quickly. The shame burned my face like a sunburn. But the isolation wasn't complete yet. I still had Diane. Diane had been my best friend since high school. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. She was Tyler's godmother. When things got bad with Vincent, Diane was the one I called. She would come over, drink wine with me, and listen to me cry about how cold he was. "He's a jerk, Alexis," she would say. "You deserve better. He doesn't appreciate you." When the divorce happened, I went to Diane's house. I sat at her kitchen table, sobbing. I told her everything. I told her about Brittany. I told her about the guest room. I told her about how scared I was for the future. I don't know what his plan is, I told her one night. He says he's taking everything. He says the business is worth millions and I won't get a dime because it's premarital effort or some lie like that. I'm terrified, Diane. Diane patted my hand. Don't worry, sweetie. You just need to be strong. Maybe you should just settle? You know, take what he offers so you don't make him angry. You know how Vincent gets when he's angry. You don't want to fight him in court. He has the best lawyers. It felt like odd advice, but I trusted her. A few days later, I was at home. Well, at Vincent's house. Vincent had left his iPad on the kitchen counter. He never did that. He usually guarded it with his life, but he had forgotten it in a rush. It pinged. A message popped up on the lock screen. Diane, she's cracking. She told me last night she's terrified of court. I told her to settle quickly. Keep pressing her on the house. She's almost ready to give up. The world stopped spinning. I stared at the screen. I couldn't believe my eyes. Diane, my best friend, my confidant. She was feeding information to Vincent. She wasn't comforting me. She was spying on me. She was helping him manipulate me. I felt a wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to grab the counter. Why? Why would she do this? Then another message popped up. Diane, when this is over, don't forget what you promised me. That weekend in Miami is going to be fun. Brittany doesn't need to know. Winky face. I almost threw up. Diane didn't just want to help Vincent win. She wanted Vincent. She was jealous of Brittany, and she was betraying me, all hoping that once I was gone, she could slide into the spot next to him. She was playing both sides. She was gathering my secrets, my fears, and my legal strategies, and handing them to Vincent on a silver platter so he could crush me. I put the iPad down exactly where it was. I didn't unlock it. I didn't delete the message. I washed my face with cold water at the sink. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked pale. I looked tired. I looked like a victim. Everyone, Vincent, Brittany, Lorraine, even Diane, they all saw a victim. They saw a woman who was losing everything. They saw a woman who was alone, weak, and stupid. They were right about the alone part, but they were wrong about the rest. They didn't know that I had seen the message. And more importantly, they didn't know what I had found 3 years ago. They thought this divorce was their idea. They thought they were the ones setting the trap. I dried my face with a paper towel. I walked back to the guest room. I sat on the bed and pulled a small, locked suitcase out from under the bed. I wasn't crying anymore. The tears were gone. They had been replaced by something much colder and much more useful. I opened the suitcase. Inside were 3 years of bank statements, tax returns, and photocopied loan documents. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. You want to play games? Let's play. To understand why I wasn't panicking, why I was able to sit in that guest room and tolerate Brittany's insults and Diane's betrayal, you have to go back in time. You have to go back 3 years. 3 years ago, I still loved Vincent, or I tried to. I was still the dutiful wife, trying to fix the cracks in our marriage. One afternoon, the mail came. Usually, Vincent intercepted the mail. He had a P.O. box for the business that only he had the key to. He told me it was safer that way. But that day, a letter came to the house. It was addressed to Vincent, but it had a final notice stamp in bright red ink on the envelope. It was from a bank I had never heard of. Curiosity got the best of me. I opened it. It was a foreclosure threat on a property in a town 30 minutes away. An apartment. I was confused. We didn't own an apartment. I managed the books, or at least the books Vincent gave me. I knew about the house mortgage. I knew about the office lease. I didn't know about this. I drove to the address on the letter. It was a luxury apartment complex. I didn't go inside. I just sat in my car and watched. After an hour, I saw Vincent's truck pull in. I saw him get out. I saw him walk into the building with a bag of groceries. He wasn't working late. He was living a double life. That night, when he was asleep, I did something I had never done before. I stole his keys. I drove to his office. I knew the alarm code. He never changed it. It was his birthday. I went into his office. I didn't look at the computer. I knew he had passwords I couldn't guess. I went to the physical files. The ones he kept in a locked cabinet in the back. I broke the lock with a screwdriver from the toolkit I kept in my trunk. What I found in that cabinet didn't just break my heart. It terrified me. It wasn't just an affair. If it was just an affair, I might have just left him. It was financial suicide. Vincent's empire was a lie. It was a hollow shell painted gold. I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by papers, reading under the light of a flashlight. First, the house. The dream house that he bragged about. He had taken out not one but 3 mortgages on it. We had 0 equity. In fact, we were underwater. We owed more than the house was worth. Then the business. He had taken out massive equipment loans for machinery we didn't have. He had bought 5 new excavators on credit, but I knew for a fact we only had 2. He had sold the others for cash and pocketed the money, but the loans were still there, racking up interest. Then I found the gambling markers. Receipts from casinos in Atlantic City and Las Vegas. Thousands of dollars. 10,000 here, 5,000 there. He was losing money faster than the business could print it. And the taxes. Oh God, the taxes. He hadn't paid payroll taxes in 2 years. He had been forging the documents he showed me. The IRS letters were stuffed in a folder marked trash. I did the math right there on the floor. He owed $1.1 million on the house. He owed $480,000 in business loans. He owed $115,000 on the luxury cars, the trucks, his personal sports car, the SUV he bought for his mother. He owed nearly $300,000 in credit card debt and unsecured personal loans. And the assets? The business accounts were empty. He was moving money from one credit card to pay another. It was a Ponzi scheme of one man. He was broke. He was worse than broke. He was nearly $2 million in debt. I sat there shivering. If I divorced him then and we split everything 50-50, I would take on half of that debt. I would be ruined. Tyler and I would be homeless. My credit would be destroyed for the rest of my life. I put the files back. I fixed the lock as best as I could. I drove home. I put the keys back on the nightstand. I lay in bed next to him, listening to him snore. I looked at this man who criticized my cooking, who called me boring, who treated me like a servant. He was a fraud. He was walking around town acting like a king, but he was drowning. And he was going to pull me down with him. That was the night the old Alexis died. The soft, hopeful wife disappeared. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. It was a long game. I knew I couldn't leave yet. I had to protect myself first. I had a small inheritance from my grandmother. It wasn't millions, but it was significant, about $50,000. It was sitting in a joint savings account. Week by week, I slowly moved it. I didn't take it all at once. I took out cash. I bought money orders. I went to a lawyer in the next town over. A quiet, older man who didn't know Vincent. I need to protect this money for my son, I told him. My husband is going to ruin us. We set up an irrevocable trust for Tyler. It was ironclad. Once the money was in there, it wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the trust. Vincent couldn't touch it. The courts couldn't touch it. It was safe. I did the same with my 401k. I found a legal loophole to roll it over into a protected annuity. I stopped spending money on myself entirely. I let Vincent buy the groceries. I let him pay the bills. I hoarded every penny I could get my hands on and funneled it into the safe accounts. And I gathered evidence. For 3 years, I played the part. I let him criticize me. I let him stay out late. I let him think I was stupid. Every time he yelled at me, I wrote it down. Every time a new collection notice came, I made a copy. Every time he signed a new, disastrous loan, I saved the PDF. I built a file of my own. A file that proved he was reckless, financially irresponsible, and solely liable for the mess he had created. So when he stood in the living room 3 years later and told me he wanted a divorce, when he told me he was keeping the assets, I almost laughed out loud. He thought he was taking the prize. He thought he was kicking me out of the castle. He didn't realize the castle was on fire, and he was locking himself inside. He wanted the assets? Fine. But assets come with liabilities. Now, sitting in the guest room listening to Brittany talk about paint colors, I knew what I had to do. I had to make him feel like he was winning. I had to make him feel like he was crushing me. Because if he felt like he was winning, he wouldn't look closely at the paperwork. He would be so eager to sign his name on the deed to the house that he wouldn't notice the mountain of debt attached to it. I closed my suitcase. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to my lawyer. Draft the settlement offer. Give him everything he asked for. The house, the business, the cars. Every single asset. Just make sure the assumption of liability clause is in the standard font, not the fine print. I want it to be legal. I hit send. Then I went downstairs to the kitchen. Brittany was there, eating an apple. "Oh, you're still here?" she said. "Not for long," I said. I even managed a weak, sad smile. "I'm just going to sign the papers and get out of your hair. You two deserve each other." And I meant it. They really, really did. The hardest part of the long game wasn't the paperwork. It wasn't the late nights spent copying bank statements in the guest room with the door locked. The hardest part was the acting. I had to be the person Vincent wanted me to be. I had to be the weak, confused, emotional wreck he believed I was. If I showed even an inch of backbone, if I showed him I was smart, he would get suspicious. He would look closer at the finances. He would realize what I was doing. So I put on a performance. It started with Diane. I knew she was reporting everything back to him, so I used her. I invited her over for coffee one last time. We sat on the back porch. Brittany was inside, loudly directing movers who were rearranging the furniture. I looked at Diane with teary eyes. "I just wanted to be over, Diane," I sobbed. I let my hand shake as I held the coffee mug. "I can't fight him. He's too strong. He has all the money. He has the lawyers. I just want to sign whatever he wants and leave. I don't want the house. It has too many bad memories now." Diane's eyes lit up. I saw it. It was a flash of predatory excitement. She reached out and squeezed my hand. "That's probably for the best, honey," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You need a fresh start. Let him keep the headache of the business. You just go find yourself." "You're right," I sniffled. "I'll tell my lawyer to just accept his terms. I don't want any of the assets. I just want peace." I knew that within 10 minutes of leaving my house, Diane would be texting Vincent. She would tell him she's folding. She doesn't want the assets. She's too emotional to fight. And that was exactly what Vincent wanted to hear. The negotiations began a week later. We met at a neutral location, a conference room in a downtown office building. Vincent walked in like he owned the place. He was wearing a new suit. He had a gold watch on his wrist that I knew he had bought on credit 3 weeks ago. He didn't look at me. He looked at his phone. His lawyer, a man named Mr. Sterling, was exactly like Vincent, loud, aggressive, and arrogant. My lawyer, Mrs. Higgins, was the opposite. She was a small, older woman with reading glasses on a chain. She looked like a grandmother. Vincent took one look at her and smirked. He thought we were a joke. "Let's make this quick," Vincent said, leaning back in his chair. "I have a lunch reservation." "We agree," Mrs. Higgins said softly. "Alexis doesn't want a drawn-out battle." Mr. Sterling slid a thick document across the table. "This is our proposal. Vincent keeps the primary residence. Vincent keeps the vacation timeshare. Vincent keeps 100% of Vincent's Construction LLC and all associated equipment. Vincent keeps the vehicles." He paused, waiting for me to argue, waiting for me to scream that I deserved half of the business I helped build. I just looked down at the table. "Okay," I whispered. Vincent looked surprised. "Okay? Just like that?" "I don't know how to run the business, Vincent," I said, keeping my voice small. "You always said I was just a secretary." "You're right. I can't handle it. It's all yours." Vincent puffed up his chest. "Well, finally some self-awareness. Yes, it's best for the company if I stay in full control. However," Mrs. Higgins interjected gently, "since Alexis is waiving her right to 50% of the marital assets, which is significant, we have one condition." Vincent narrowed his eyes. "What condition?" "I'm not paying her $1 million in alimony, if that's what you think." "No alimony," I said quickly. "I don't want spousal support." The room went silent. Vincent's jaw dropped. "You don't?" he asked. "No," I said. "I want a clean break. I don't want a check from you every month that reminds me of this marriage. I want to be completely independent." Vincent looked at his lawyer. Mr. Sterling looked confused, but he nodded. To them, this was the deal of the century. They were getting everything, the house, the business, the cars, and they didn't even have to pay me monthly support. They thought I was an idiot. They thought I was so heartbroken that I was walking away from a gold mine. "So, what is the condition?" Mr. Sterling asked. "The condition," Mrs. Higgins said, sliding a single piece of paper across the table, "is that the division of assets and liabilities is absolute. If Vincent takes the asset, he takes the debt attached to it completely. He must refinance everything into his name alone within 90 days. Alexis walks away with nothing, but she also walks away owing nothing. Vincent laughed. He actually laughed. That's it, he asked. That's your big demand? That I pay my own bills? Yes, I said. I just want my name off the papers, Vincent. I don't want to get calls from the bank. Done, Vincent said, slapping the table. Easy. I pay the bills anyway. I make the money, I pay the bills. That's how it works. He didn't know. He truly didn't know. He was so detached from the reality of his own finances, so used to me juggling the accounts in the background, that he didn't realize the bills were insurmountable. He thought the business was profitable because there was cash in his pocket. He didn't understand that the cash was loan money, not profit. We need a full financial disclosure, Mrs. Higgins said. We have provided Alexis's full financial statement. We need Vincent's. Vincent waved his hand dismissively. Yeah. My accountant will send it over. Whatever. He didn't have an accountant. He had me. And since I had stopped doing the books 3 months ago, nobody had been tracking anything. We left the meeting. In the elevator, Mrs. Higgins looked at me. Are you sure about this, Alexis? She asked quietly. Once he signs, there is no going back. You get nothing from the marriage. No equity. No payout. I'm sure, I said. I'm not walking away with nothing, Mrs. Higgins. I'm walking away with my life. The next few weeks were a blur of tension. I waited for the phone to ring. I waited for Vincent to suddenly wake up, check his credit score, or look at a bank statement. I was terrified that he would actually read the documents we sent over. We had listed everything clearly. That was the trick. We didn't hide anything. In the settlement agreement, there was an appendix. Appendix B. It listed every single debt. Mortgage 1, Chase Bank, $450,000 mortgage 2, Wells Fargo, $300,000 home equity line of credit, $350,000 business loan A, $200,000 business loan B, $280,000 IRS tax liens, estimated $150,000. It was all there. Pages of it. If he read it, he would see that the assets he was fighting for were actually anchors that would drag him to the bottom of the ocean. But I banked on his arrogance. I banked on the fact that Vincent never read anything longer than a text message. I banked on the fact that he was so focused on winning the house and the business to impress Brittany that he wouldn't look at the price tag. The final signing was scheduled for a Friday, 2 days before I moved the last of my boxes out of the house. I walked through the empty rooms. Brittany had already repainted the living room a horrible bright yellow. She had hung tacky art on the walls. It didn't look like my home anymore. Vincent came home while I was loading the trunk of my car. Finally leaving, he asked. He leaned against his truck, looking smug. Yes, I said. I'm gone. Don't expect me to cry, he said. You made this harder than it had to be, Alexis. But at least you finally came to your senses. I did, I said. I really did. Make sure you're at the courthouse on time on Friday, he warned. I have a celebration dinner planned afterwards. I don't want to be late. A celebration? I asked. Yeah, he grinned. Brittany and I are going to celebrate the expansion of the empire. Without you dragging me down, I'm going to take this company to the next level. I looked at him. I felt a moment of pity, just a flash. He was a man standing on a trapdoor, bragging about how tall he was. Okay, Vincent, I said. See you in court. I drove away. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I drove straight to my new apartment, a small, 2-bedroom place in a quiet part of town. It was tiny compared to the big house. The kitchen was outdated. The carpet was beige. But when I walked inside and locked the door, I felt something I hadn't felt in 10 years. I felt safe. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat on my cheap sofa. I took a deep breath. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now, all I had to do was wait for the snap. The courtroom wasn't like on TV. It was smaller, quieter, and smelled like floor wax and old paper. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a low hum that seemed to get louder the longer we waited. I sat on the left side with Mrs. Higgins. I wore a simple gray suit. I kept my hands folded in my lap to stop them from trembling. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. This was it. The moment of truth. Vincent sat on the right side. He looked bored. He was checking his watch every 30 seconds. He was tapping his foot. He looked like a man waiting for a bus, not a man ending a marriage. Brittany wasn't allowed in the courtroom, but I knew she was waiting in the hallway. I could picture her pacing back and forth, probably planning how to redecorate the master bedroom once the ink was dry. The judge, Judge Patterson, was a stern woman with gray hair and glasses that sat on the end of her nose. She looked tired. She had probably seen 1,000 divorces just like this one. "All right," Judge Patterson said, shuffling some papers. "We are here for the final decree of divorce in the matter of Vincent versus Alexis. I see a settlement agreement has been reached." "Yes, Your Honor," Vincent's lawyer, Mr. Sterling, boomed. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. "My client has generously agreed to take on full responsibility for the family estate and the business to ensure stability. The wife, excuse me, the respondent, has waived her claim to these assets." "Is that correct?" the judge asked, looking at me. Mrs. Higgins stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. My client wishes to dissolve the marriage with a clean break. She is waiving her interest in the real estate, the business entities, and the vehicles." The judge looked over her glasses at me. She seemed surprised. Usually, wives fought for the house. Usually, they fought for a share of the business. "Mrs. Alexis," the judge asked directly, "you understand that by signing this, you are giving up any future claim to these assets? If the business becomes worth $10 million next year, you get nothing. You understand this?" "I understand, Your Honor," I said. My voice was steady. "I just want to move on." "Very well," the judge said. "Bring the documents forward." Mr. Sterling placed the thick stack of papers on the table in front of Vincent. "Sign here, here, and initial here," Mr. Sterling whispered, pointing to the little X marks. Vincent picked up the pen. He didn't even pretend to read. He just started signing. Scrawl. Flip page. Scrawl. Flip page. He was signing his life away, and he looked like he was signing autographs. I watched him. My heart was pounding against my ribs. "Just sign it. Just sign it." He got to the last page. The page titled Schedule of Liabilities Assumed by Husband. This was the moment. Mr. Sterling paused. He looked at the page. He frowned. He leaned in closer to the paper. "Wait," Mr. Sterling muttered. He put a hand on Vincent's wrist to stop him. "Vincent, hold on." "What?" Vincent snapped. "I'm signing. Let's go." "Vincent, look at this total," Mr. Sterling whispered. His voice was getting tight. "This debt schedule, have you seen this? It lists the total liabilities at nearly $2 million. Vincent rolled his eyes. "It's just numbers, Sterling. It's leverage. The business carries debt. That's how it works. I have assets to cover it." "No," Sterling said, flipping back a few pages. "I don't think you do. The appraisal on the house came in at $800,000. The mortgages listed here are over $1 million. You're underwater on the house. And the business. Vincent, these loans are personal guarantees. If you sign this, you are personally accepting $2 million in debt with no equity to back it up." Vincent pulled his arm away. "You're overthinking it. I know my business. Alexis doesn't know anything. She probably wrote these numbers wrong." He looked at me across the aisle. He smirked. "Trying to scare me, Alexis?" he said, loud enough for the judge to hear. "Trying to make me think I'm broke, so I don't take the company? Nice try." "Mr. Vincent," the judge said sharply. "Address the court, not your wife." "Sorry, Your Honor," Vincent said. "I'm just saying. I'm ready to sign. I accept the assets. I accept the liabilities. Whatever." "Vincent, I strongly advise you to pause," Mr. Sterling hissed. "We need to audit these numbers." "I don't have time for an audit," Vincent whispered back angrily. "Brittany is waiting. I want this done today. If we delay, Alexis might change her mind and ask for alimony. Just let me sign." He was so arrogant. He thought my silence was a trick to get him to back down. He thought I wanted the business, so he had to take it to spite me. He shook off his lawyer's hand. He pressed the pen to the paper. "I, Vincent, hereby accept full ownership of all marital assets and assume sole responsibility for all debts listed in Appendix B, indemnifying Alexis from any future liability," he read out loud, mocking the legal language. He signed his name with a flourish. He slammed the pen down. "Done," he said. The judge took the papers. She stamped them. Clack, clack. "Divorce granted," she said. "The settlement is binding as of this moment." I let out a breath I had been holding for 3 years. It was over. Mr. Sterling picked up the copy of the agreement. He looked pale. He looked at Vincent with an expression of pure horror. "Vincent," the lawyer whispered, You have no idea what you just did." "I won," Vincent said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. "I got everything." "No," Mr. Sterling said. He wasn't whispering anymore. He looked at the document, then at me. He realized it. He finally realized it. "You didn't get the assets," Mr. Sterling said, his voice trembling. "You just assumed the debt. All of it. Vincent, you are technically bankrupt the moment you walk out this door." Vincent froze. "What?" "The house." Sterling pointed to the paper. "You owe $1.1 million. It's worth $800,000. You're $300,000 in the hole just on the house. The business accounts, they're listed as empty. The loans, Vincent, you owe $480,000 to the bank due next month." Vincent's face went gray. He looked at the paper. Then he looked at me. "That's a lie," he stammered. "The business has money. Alexis manages the money." "Alexis, tell him." He looked at me, desperation creeping into his eyes. "Tell him we have money in the reserves." I stood up slowly. I picked up my purse. I looked him dead in the eye. "There are no reserves, Vincent," I said calmly. "There haven't been for 3 years. You spent it all. Gambling, trips, the new trucks. It's all gone. I was just moving money around to keep the lights on." You stole it," he shouted, pointing a finger at me. "She stole it, Your Honor." "Fraud." "No," Mrs. Higgins said, stepping in. "We provided full bank statements 3 weeks ago. It shows every transaction. Vincent's personal withdrawals. Vincent's casino payments. It's all documented. You had 3 weeks to read it, Mr. Vincent. You chose not to." Vincent looked around the room like a trapped animal. "But I signed." "You signed," the judge said, closing her folder. "And you refused your own counsel's advice to wait. The judgment stands. Court is adjourned." The judge stood up and walked out. Vincent stood there, holding the edge of the table. He looked like he had been hit by a truck. He looked at the paper with his signature on it. The signature that had just cost him $2 million. "Alexis," he whispered, "you can't do this. We're partners." "No," I said. "We were married. Now we're nothing." I turned around and walked toward the double doors. I pushed them open. Brittany was standing right there in the hallway. She beamed when she saw the doors open. "Did we win?" she asked excitedly. "Did we get the house?" I stopped. I looked at her. "Yes," I said. "He got the house. He got it all." "Yes," she squealed. She pushed past me, running into the courtroom to hug Vincent. I walked down the long hallway toward the exit. I could hear Vincent's voice rising in a panic inside the courtroom, and then Brittany's confused voice asking what was wrong. I pushed the heavy doors open and stepped out into the sunlight. The air smelled fresh. The traffic noise sounded like music. I had $50,000 in a trust for my son. I had a rented apartment. I had a cheap car. And I had 0 debt. I was free. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It happened in a series of loud, crashing waves. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one trying to build a dam to stop the water. I was watching from the shore, dry and safe. The first week after the court date was silent for me, but I heard the echoes of the explosion. My phone started ringing 2 hours after I left the courthouse. It was Vincent. Then it was his lawyer. Then it was Lorraine. I didn't answer. I had already blocked their numbers. It felt strange to see the notifications pop up, blocked call, and feel zero urge to pick up. I sat in my small living room, drinking tea, listening to the rain against the window. The first domino to fall was Brittany. I heard about it from my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who called me a week later. Mrs. Gable was the town gossip, and for once, her nosiness was useful. "You won't believe it, Alexis," Mrs. Gable whispered on the phone. "There was a moving truck at the big house this morning. But it wasn't Vincent moving out. It was that girl, the blonde one." Apparently, Brittany didn't stick around when she realized there was no money for redecorating. Vincent had tried to keep up appearances. He tried to tell her it was just a cash flow issue. But when his credit card started getting declined at dinner, Brittany did the math. She wasn't there for Vincent. She was there for the lifestyle. Without the lifestyle, Vincent was just an angry, debt-ridden man in his 40s. She packed her bags and left. Next came the business. This was the part one knew would happen fast. Vincent's construction ran on credit. We paid the lumber yard with money from the concrete guy, and we paid the concrete guy with money from the next client's deposit. It was a delicate cycle. But now, Vincent had signed a document admitting to all the debt. The banks saw the divorce decree. They saw that he was underwater. They froze his lines of credit immediately. Vendors started calling him. "Where's the check, Vincent?" He couldn't pay them. Within a month, the lawsuit started. Not the quiet kind, the public kind. Suppliers were suing for breach of contract. Workers were quitting because their paychecks bounced. I saw Vincent once during this time. I was at the grocery store. He was in the checkout line ahead of me. He didn't see me. He looked 10 years older. His shirt was wrinkled. He was buying a frozen dinner and a 6-pack of beer. When he tried to pay, he had to try 3 different cards before one worked. The cashier looked annoyed. Vincent looked humiliated. He grabbed his bag and rushed out head down. Then came Lorraine. Vincent's mother found my new address. I don't know how. She showed up at my door on a Tuesday evening. She looked frantic. Her hair wasn't done. She wasn't wearing her usual jewelry. "Alexis," she gasped when I opened the door. "You have to stop this." "Stop what, Lorraine?" I asked, standing in the doorway. I didn't invite her in. "He's losing the house," she cried. "The bank sent a foreclosure notice. They're going to take the house. My son is going to be on the street." "That's unfortunate," I said calmly. "Unfortunate," she screamed. "It's your fault. You tricked him. You knew about the money. You have to help him. You have to sign something. Tell the judge it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," I said. "Vincent wanted the assets. He got them. He wanted the house. He got it. I can't help him pay for a house I don't own, Lorraine." "But he's family," she wailed. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I looked at this woman who had called me boring, this woman who had compared me to Brittany, this woman who had watched her son mistreat me for years and cheered him on. "I'm not his family anymore," I said. "And neither are you really. You only liked him when he was buying you things." I closed the door. She banged on it for 5 minutes, screaming names at me. Then she left. Finally, there was Diane. Diane was the saddest part. She realized too late that she had bet on the wrong horse. She had helped Vincent destroy me, thinking she would swoop in and take my place as the queen of the empire. But now the empire was a pile of rubble. She sent me a text message. She wasn't blocked because I had forgotten about her number. "Diane, hey sweetie, I heard what happened. I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry if I seemed distant. I was just trying to stay neutral for Tyler's sake. I miss you. Let's get coffee?" She was trying to crawl back. She realized I was the one who came out clean. She wanted to be friends with the survivor. I deleted the text. I didn't reply. I didn't feel anger. I just felt nothing. She was a stranger to me now. By the 3-month mark, it was over. Vincent filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The dream house was sold at a sheriff's auction for a fraction of what he owed. The business was liquidated. The trucks were towed away. The man who wanted everything ended up with less than nothing. And he had done it all to himself, with a pen and a smile. While Vincent's life was loud and chaotic, mine was becoming quiet and beautiful. Recovery isn't a straight line. For the first few months, I was scared. I was 40 years old, single, and living in a rental apartment. I woke up some nights in a panic, reaching for the calculator, thinking I had to balance the books for the business. Then I would remember. There were no books. There was no business. I had to rediscover who Alexis was. I started with the apartment. It was small, but it was mine. I painted the walls a soft, warm cream color, not the stark white Vincent always insisted on. I went to thrift stores and bought furniture that I liked. I bought a velvet armchair in deep blue. I bought colorful mismatched plates. I filled the windows with plants. For the first time in 20 years, my home reflected me. Tyler was the most important part of my recovery. At first, he was angry. He was 14, and he blamed me for the divorce because Vincent had told him it was my fault. "You ruined Dad's life," Tyler told me one weekend, throwing his backpack on the floor. "I didn't ruin it, Ty," I said gently. "I just stopped fixing it." But as the months went on, Tyler saw the truth. He stayed with Vincent every other weekend in a small, dingy apartment Vincent had rented after the foreclosure. He saw his father drinking. He heard his father blaming everyone else, the banks, the lawyers, me, the economy. He saw the anger. And then he would come back to my place. He would see me calm. He would see dinner on the table. He would see that I wasn't stressed or crying anymore. One evening, Tyler was doing homework at the kitchen table. "Mom," he asked. "Yeah, Dad is really weird now," he said, not looking up from his book. "He just yells at the TV all the time. He says you stole his money." I sat down across from him. "People say things when they are hurt, Tyler. But the truth is in the actions. I'm here. I'm working. I'm taking care of us." Tyler nodded. "I like it better here," he whispered. That was the moment I knew we were going to be okay. I needed a job. I couldn't live on my small savings forever. I had always loved interior design, but Vincent had mocked it. "That's a hobby, not a job," he used to say. I decided to prove him wrong. I started taking night classes at the community college. I learned about drafting, color theory, and space planning. I was the oldest student in the class, but I didn't care. I was hungry for it. I started small. I offered to help a neighbor redesign her living room for free, just for the portfolio. She loved it. She told her sister. Her sister hired me. My business, New Chapter Interiors, was born. My specialty became newly divorced women. I understood them. I knew what it felt like to be left in a house that felt full of ghosts. I helped them reclaim their spaces. "We need to get rid of this couch," I would tell a client. "It's heavy. It blocks the light. Let's get something that breathes." I wasn't just moving furniture. I was helping them move on. We would cry together sometimes, picking out paint swatches. I would tell them, "It gets better. Look at me. It gets better." I wasn't rich. I didn't drive a Mercedes like Vincent used to. I drove a used Honda. I clipped coupons. But I had dignity. When I bought groceries, I paid with my own money that I had earned. I didn't have to ask anyone for permission. I remember one Saturday morning. I was sitting on my balcony, drinking coffee. The sun was hitting my face. Tyler was inside, laughing at a video game. I had a client meeting later that afternoon. I took a deep breath. My chest didn't hurt. My stomach wasn't in knots. I realized that for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just living. I had built a life out of the wreckage. And this time, the foundation was solid. 2 years passed. I was 42. My business was steady. Tyler was 16 and learning to drive. The trauma of the divorce had faded into a dull scar, something I remembered, but something that didn't hurt when I touched it. It was a rainy Tuesday in November when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door without checking the peephole. Vincent stood there. For a second, I didn't recognize him. He had lost weight, but not in a healthy way. He looked gaunt. His hair was thinning and gray. He was wearing a jacket that looked too big for him, and his shoes were scuffed. The man who used to strut into a room like he owned the building was gone. In his place was a ghost. "Alexis," he said. His voice was raspy. "Vincent," I said. I didn't open the door wider. I stood in the frame, blocking the view of my warm, cozy apartment. "Can I come in?" he asked. "It's raining." "No," I said. "What do you want?" He looked down at his feet. He shifted uncomfortably. I just wanted to see you. To see how you're doing." "I'm doing well," I said. "That's good," he nodded. "That's good. I'm having a hard time, Alexis." He looked up at me, and his eyes were full of tears. It was a look I had never seen on him before. "Vulnerability. The bankruptcy," he mumbled. "It's done, but nobody will hire me. My reputation is shot in this town. Everyone knows about the debts. I'm living in a studio apartment. I'm driving a delivery truck for a courier service." He paused, waiting for me to comfort him, waiting for the old Alexis, the fixer, to step in and say, "Oh, poor Vincent, let me help you." I just watched him. "I miss you," he said. The words hung in the wet air. "I miss us. I made a mistake, Alexis. A huge mistake. Brittany was nothing. You were the only one who really knew me. You were the only one who could handle me." "I wasn't handling you, Vincent," I said softly. "I was carrying you." He flinched. I know. And I'm sorry." I was thinking, maybe we could try again? For Tyler? I could help you with your design business. I know how to run a company. We could be a team again. I almost laughed. It was tragic. He still didn't get it. He still thought he was the prize. He thought that after everything he did, the cheating, the stealing, the humiliation, he could just show up in the rain, and I would be grateful. "Vincent," I said. My voice was calm, steady, and final. "You asked for a divorce. You asked for the assets. You asked to be free of me." "I was stupid," he pleaded. "I'm begging you, Alexis. I have nobody. My mom won't talk to me because I lost her money too. I'm all alone." I looked at him. I searched my heart for anger. I searched for hate, but I didn't find any. I just found pity. He was a stranger to me, a sad, broken stranger. "I can't help you," I said. "Please." He stepped forward, reaching for the door. "Just a cup of coffee. Just let me sit down." I put my hand on the door. "You wanted everything, Vincent," I said. "And you got exactly what you signed for." "Alexis, don't." "Goodbye, Vincent." I closed the door. I didn't slam it. I just clicked it shut. I turned the deadbolt. Click. I stood there in the hallway for a moment, listening. I heard his footsteps linger on the mat. Then, slowly, I heard him turn and walk away. I heard his heavy, tired steps go down the stairs. I walked back into my living room. The velvet chair was waiting for me. My book was open on the table. The smell of cinnamon tea filled the air. I sat down. I picked up my book. I took a sip of tea. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was free. And for the first time in my life, the silence wasn't empty. It was full of peace.